Hi, this is Tim Sanders, founder of the Omnia Radiation Balancer, and I'm honoured to have been a guest on the Journey to Truth show. Now, with phone radiation, most people think that because they can't feel anything, nothing is happening. But the reality is that this radiation is causing a lot of stress and damage in your body, and your brain doesn't register that it's happening. The likelihood is that you'll only find out about it when this continuous stress shows up in the body as disease. And this is backed up by well over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies showing that EMF causes serious diseases when they tested it on rats. The Omnia Radiation Balancer removes this stress. It's proven to balance the blood, it brings perfect crystalline structure to water, and our kinesiology muscle tests show that the body goes super strong when you stuck it on your phone. And it works with 5G. You just order enough patches to cover every radiating device in your home and you're done. It lasts forever. But to be clear, let's not get complacent. We must all stop 5G together. So big thanks and big love to Tyler and Aaron. Click on the link below and you can quickly and permanently bring balance back to your body. Thank you.
Hey, you're listening to Journey to Truth podcast. As you notice, Aaron and I are in separate locations tonight due to some icy weather. So we're kind of going back to our roots, doing it old school style here. Tonight we have Native American elder Clifford Mahooty. He is an elder from the Zuni Pueblo Indian tribe of New Mexico. And his mission is to bring forward, he's a wisdom keeper of Zuni history and spiritual teachings, and he's bringing forward that information to the masses because it's crucial right now. He brings a whole new perspective on our roots, where we came from and who we are. And if we don't truly know that stuff, we'll never know where we're truly going. So I'm super excited to get a history lesson from Clifford tonight. We're so happy to have you on, Clifford. How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Awesome. So yeah, if you want, I would absolutely love if you could just briefly tell people who you are and explain your mission as far as bringing this information forward at this time and why it's crucial at this time.
Yes, my name is Clifford Mahooty. I'm with the Zuni Indian tribe from New Mexico, United States of America, and I am 76 years old. So I have throughout my whole life studied quite a bit. My roots on the Indian reservation, and went out into the world. And I am also a civil environmental engineer. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering, and I have worked in many organizations, private industry, corporate America, and many government programs. And also I have served as a public health service officer in U.S. Public Health Service. So it's been a pleasant journey, and I have no regrets about the profession that I chose. I just wish I had longer life to complete a lot of these things that I started. But the other thing too is that I belong to many orders within the Zuni tribe. I belong to the Medicine Society, Kachina Society, clan, and numerous organizations within our Pueblo cultural, religious, spiritual systems. Now, I have been working on this type of information to let the people know out there that we as American Indians still exist in this country. I've been watching the news on the radio, right, during the impeachment hearings, and the messages that go out every day is that, this country is never recognized as the country that belonged to the Aboriginal people of this land. And I am very, very disappointed that every time that they talk about it, is that they pat themselves on the back and how great they made this country. Well, this country was not discovered. He was here all this time. Aside from that, because of this type of disinformation, not knowing exactly what the roots of a lot of the the native peoples are over here, I've taken a personal effort to convey to the general public, the public at large, to state to them, or at least direct them in a way that they can look at the history and find out that the Americans, the Americas, whether it be North, Mesoamerica, South America, there were civilizations here that far exceeded some of the technology applications that most of the world, or rather it was parallel with other systems on the planet. But there are a lot of things that have been destroyed, especially in the United States, where there's no way to trace the history back and to even study them, why they made such an effort to make these different types of say structures, and incorporating the astrological systems, the electromagnetic forces of the earth, and all these other scientific principles that have been existed for thousands of years. My ancestors and others, the Aboriginal people, have used a lot of systems for their day-to-day activities, whether it be seasonal work in agriculture, worshiping the stars and all that in the planetary systems. And also, a lot of people don't really understand it, is the spirituality and the multidimensional systems, which we darling need so hard right now because of our imbalance, not only of mankind, but also of nature in general. So I have been working on, well, I sat back, I retired about over 10 years ago as an environmental engineer working for environmental justice with the federal government. And I worked at that time with 561 federally recognized tribes and other state recognized tribes in the environmental issues, anything that has to do with EPA stuff, the regulations and laws that are on Indian tribes, tribal lands, and also the pollution of activities that are happening throughout the planet. So my mission is especially toward a younger generation, which in the United States, our education system is in the dump. And especially in the American Indian side, where they were forced upon not only religion, but lifestyles and deviation from the spiritual connections, especially with the land, and also within their own social structures. This is very hard to accept because I have studied quite a bit. So the reason I came out, started doing this thing, is to at least have some type of a voice within this whole system of interpretation of many things that are misled by others about the American Indian. I'm a full-blooded Indian, and I have met a lot of Indian people, even though they're not full-blooded. They maintain a very high respect for what the American Indian was all about. And the reverse is true. Some of the full-blooded American Indians are there, but they seem to be not concerned, perhaps because of the way this country has been for the last 500 years. So it's an effort. I did this because it is an important that people like myself come out and at least convey some of the missing puzzles, pieces of what this country is all about. And we're now at a culmination of people looking for answers, and the answers have been here all this time. If they did not destroy them, if they had respected the things that the Aborigines of this country had in other places of the world, we would not be in such a bad shape as we are right now. So I'm looking at everything from the philosophical standpoint. I've had a chance to study both the extremes, whether it's from the spirituality or the technological, and in between the people, and many things that make the galaxy, our galaxy, is part of the whole system. And there, everything is interconnected.
Yes.
And right now, we are in a situation where we're at what the scientists call, engineers call maximum entropy. We're going in all directions, and we're not concentrating on what should be happening. And look what's happening in this country right now. We're in a division where we're at war among each other, and those people that are in power are the wrong ones that are heading organizations, which is against a lot of things that whatever we call God, whoever we call God is all about, and spirituality. So this is one of the reasons that I'm doing this type of work. I don't expect anything from anybody. I don't owe anybody anything. I don't, they don't owe me anything. And what I do is that I talk at these conventions and other places, and I don't care what they say about me, but because it has to be done in a manner that we have to wake each other up and say, hey, look, let's all look at what's happening, and perhaps we'll all get together and to look at a certain way of adjusting ourselves. And it has to come from internally within each individual. No spaceship is going to come over here and save us. No aliens are going to come over and take us away to the promised land or to a big UFO in the sky. So we have to start within each other. So that's basically the thumbnail sketch of what I'm doing.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's textbook on what everyone should be doing right now. We really should be doing it from the heart center and not expect anything in return. I agree with that. Something I saw or I heard you say in a prior interview, talking about the roots of this country, that our Constitution was actually adopted from the Iroquois Confederacy. It's not even originally our idea, and I thought that was fascinating because this is new information to me. Can you touch on that?
Yes, in one of my journeys throughout life, I was married to a Mohawk Indian chief from the St. Regis Band, and this is where I learned a lot from her at that time about the Iroquois Confederacy, how they were set up, the judicial, the legislative, and of course the administrative part, the executive part. And so I work with a lot of people with ancient aliens. If you look at some of the episodes that Georgios Tsoukalos did, he made a very thorough investigation about the Iroquois Confederacy and how the founding fathers took that and said that this is our Constitution. What they did was they took that Iroquois Confederacy way of government and adopted it into, and they call it the Constitution of the United States of America. So I think that that's one source that you can look at. But I have been told that when I was out there working with these people, I could immediately see where the applications were. However, throughout the last 500 years, that's been torn apart because of the conqueror. The colonization destroyed a lot of those concepts, as we all know.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else that just fascinates me is I've heard you speak about before is the Kachinas, which are essentially a representative of ETs, of extraterrestrials. At least in your teachings, they were. And I know the ETs play a big part in why we're here. And I think that aspect of it is also very important.
Yes, it is. Because I belong to that order, there's a process that we go through as little kids, probably between the ages of maybe 10 to about 15 years old. We have to belong to the order. But the concept of the Kachina, and it's throughout the whole Pueblo system, Pueblo Indian system. Not only that, but also in other groups, say like down in Peru and other places. A good example is the Cocopelli whoever or whatever Kokopelli was, because he belongs to that group of the Kachina, and the word in front of that is Koko, which means Koko. If you go to Zuni and you ask what that word means, they'll tell you immediately that's the Kachina. The Kachina is pronounced in different ways throughout in Hopi and other pueblos. Some places they call Kachina, and other places they call Kachina. So, but it's the same one, and this is the direct representation of what uh, the Pueblo people had to revert to in order to represent the ETs at that time to participate in our activities of the Pueblo people. The reason that happened was because ETs, when they used to come to the Pueblo people and participate in they were the merrymakers, or they used to bring, their purpose was to bring rain and seeds, but they also did entertainment by song, dance, and other activities. And the reason that the humans had to take place of the Kachina, which were the ETs, was because of abduction. In the old days, thousands of years ago, or maybe nobody really knows, they had to replace the ceremony with representation of the Kachina, or at least the ET, and they call themselves the Kachina. So that's the direct link to it. A lot of our own people do not know that, because a lot of this information has been kept sort of locked up or kept undercover because of the invasion of the Smithsonian group way back in the 1880s, and other groups that really, of course, they also knew about what they did to Mesoamerican brothers and sisters down there. So a lot of this information had been kept silent for a long time. I have been criticized by my own tribal members for talking about these things, but it doesn't make any difference, because it's it's there, and it's for the future generations. Because that's the reason that I have taken. I knew what was going to happen when I started going out there and doing this. Is not just the only area that I have taken upon myself. I started out in the engineering profession when I was a young kid back in the 50s. So I was also ostracized because I was taking math and science, and so it falls in the same area. So it doesn't bother me. It hurts because if they could only help me, it would be a lot better world for the Pueblo people. So that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and Aaron and I and everybody coming forward with this type of information, we all are criticized on some level due to ignorance, due to people's lack of understanding, or their unwillingness to be open-minded, and it is a real issue. So I commend you for doing that, and that's a good advice, to just not care, because it doesn't make a difference what people think of
Oh,
you, because in your heart, if you're acting from the heart, then you have nothing to worry about. So thank you for doing that, because I've learned a lot just from listening to you speak before and in your interviews, and you bring a lot to the table. And if anything, at the very least, you get people thinking.
well, one thing that I think is a misnomer or not true is that they think that I make a lot of money when I get on something like this, a podcast, or they invite me to a conference. That is not true.
Yeah.
Uh, even if they took me to the world's biggest event, they don't even pay you enough for anything. Sometimes I do it for free. Of course, they pay for my air transportation and a hotel, but that's all I care about, because the information is far more important
Mm-hmm.
than what we hold back or what we ask for in terms of why you got to give me money to give you this information. It's not like that way with me, because I have a lot of uh, people that have provided me a very thorough education, and it's sort of like when we talk about that with the group that I work with, it's service to others. That's what it is.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
So, have you personally had any experiences with ETs as a child, or even currently?
Well, I think the biggest one is I even presented this under the Phoenix MUFON. You can probably pull it out of their archives. I did this way last year in September, which would be September 2019, I believe. And it's a 2.5 hour presentation
Oh wow!
of my encounter with UFOs in Zuni, New Mexico, and it's a minute by minute description. And the title of that presentation is 1 month after Travis Walton.
Oh
Nice.
wow!
Travis Walton and I are very good friends. I've known
Nice.
Travis for some time, and he has been a very inspiring person on my part. And when I first met him, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, I didn't really know who he was until I saw that movie way back in the 90s.
Fire in
When
the sky.
Fire in the
Fire in
sky.
the Sky, yes. And since that time, I've had good connect with him. But that is probably one of the best uh, features of UFO contact, even I guess you might call ETs. And you can pull that up on the MUFON, the Phoenix MUFON. So it's there. So that's what it basically is that 1 month after Travis Walton, which was in December 6th, uh, and well, actually 5th and 6th. So Travis was in November 5th of 1970. I can't remember the
75, I believe.
Yeah, 75, yeah.
Yeah.
75. So I did not know this, but it's about approximately 101 mile from where his encounter was to the place where maybe about 100 miles on the Arizona-New Mexico border. So if you can pull that up, you can see the whole story on that. It's on YouTube also.
Yeah, definitely. So, if
Nice.
anyone who's listening, go check that out because we don't have 2.5 hours to go minute by minute now. But
No, no, I'm just talking about it's there.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
you,
gonna check that out.
so you have had experience though, which is probably part of the reason why you're compelled to talk about it. Because I know that's my reason for talking about this stuff because I've had personal experiences that I can resonate with and relate to. Therefore, it makes me comfortable coming forward.
Well, here's another thing too. All native peoples or native uh, Aboriginal peoples, whether it's here in Mexico or United States or all throughout the whole planet, whether it's in Australia or Japan or wherever, they have all the Aboriginal tribes is a direct connection to what we call the star people. And of course, people like the History Channel and Ancient Aliens, they do a very good job of doing that type of but of course they call it a theory, which it is a theory, but there's a lot of evidence. We still practice that today. And it's a whole ritual. If you look at the Dogons in Africa, they still go through the same thing. You look at the Indians down in Mexico, the Veracruz people over there, that every ritual or every enactment talks about the star people coming, what they did, and then they're leaving. There was and they're still here. The only difference between the humans and them is that we only see a small spectrum, and we're only limited to limited to dimension. If you look at the dimensions, and it goes on forever, and it's been scientifically proven. I've studied a lot of science on that, but every time when I look at a formula or an equation or whatever, and they explain it, and I said, heck, the Indians already knew about that. But we didn't have any formulas for that. We just knew about it.
that's all part of the inner knowing that I think you get automatically when you are living from that heart center, and you're being authentic, and you're not bombarded by all this external information that's pulling you away from the truth. So I think that goes hand in hand with it.
Yeah, there's about 3 or 4 years ago, well, actually three, I work with many different folks. Last year, we decided that we're going to no longer keep some of that American Indian information sort of set back, because now we're just going to start coming out with it regardless of what happens. It's part of the disclosure effort. And a lot of people have been talking about disclosure of the American Indian, I mean, the American government. It's not going to happen. It has to be done by people like your groups that are in the on the shows, people like myself that are not concerned about being sent to a prison, or because it's here, it's always been here. It's just that we've been lied to for so many years. And having been born and raised on an Indian reservation, there is so many lies that were told us. And then when I started reading history, they actually excluded a lot of this information that our people have known for thousands and thousands of years. If you look at the Grand Canyon itself in Arizona, we did it's on YouTube. It's called Expedition to Sipapu, where the Buddhists and the Egyptians and the American Indians were here in one place.
Yes, they were.
And the Kincaid expedition in 1908, I believe it was the start of that. And so you can go to any Indian group out here in the Southwest, and they'll tell you exactly the same thing. I even did a thing about when Lemuria sunk, and where those people, what happened to them, where they went, and it's still practiced to this day. The only problem is you got to know the language. You got to know the language. There's many different layers in every Indian group or tribe. Is that you have to know the language and how to describe it.
Well, this is a perfect segue into a question I want to ask you about inner Earth and the inner Earth beings, because from my understanding, parts of the Grand Canyon are possible entryways into certain cavern systems, let's say. And the ant people I know were talked about in this area. And I was just wanted to know your thoughts on inner Earth itself. And did that ever come up in your teachings?
Well, it's part of our rituals. It's part of our ceremonies. The songs and the prayers and everything else are right there. Again, you have to sit and listen to it. My own people criticize me when they say that, well, he's just giving away secrets. I say, why would it be a secret when they say that in public? All you have to do is listen. And what they talk about is how they originated, the journeys that they took, who they met, how they came about where we're at. And they talk about the inner earth. Our people actually generated for this world now from the inner earth. Now you go one step further in the Grand Canyon, there's a lot of Indian tribes, the Hopi, the Zuni, and there's still some in there called the Havasupai. And the Coconino people, which are spread out here in southern New Mexico, Arizona and New Mexico. So it has always been known that the last catastrophe, and as we all know, or at least the scientists say, that the world has flipped over on its axis 13 times. And the last one was destroyed by mankind, and they had to go for refuge, and this is where they went, into the inner world. That's where they were saved. And you can go to any Pueblo in Arizona or the Hopi or any other tribes within the Southwest, and they'll tell you the same story. The only problem is that nobody took them serious. Well, we were talking about the inner earth, and this is where the ant people and the insectoid people and other forms had guided them, or at least probably upgraded them, because there's an upgrade that happens even after they came out of the ground, so to speak. And the proper term, I mean, the common term they use is the Sipapu, Sipapu, which are right there at the confluence of the Little Colorado and the Big Colorado and the Grand Canyon. It's right there where the Hopi emerged from. And the Zuni is up in one of the, up at the higher level, which at one time was probably the same level as the river at one time. But so there's many other places on the planet of other Aboriginal people. There's the Yavapai Nation, which is in near Sedona. Their emergence place is the Montezuma Well, and that well has never increased or decreased its flow for I don't know how many hundreds of years. And so there's a lot of springs that are referred to that were directly connected to the inner earth. And we've always believed in the inner earth people, and they're part of that whole group of what the Zuni call the raw people. Raw being that they're non-human. So they also the analogy that I give or comparison is that when you talk about magic, you know, like Chris Angel and Copperfield and all those, they're illusionists. But
Yeah.
I was talking about the Magi this morning about the Star of Bethlehem and all that. And of course, the word magic came from those people. But the term that I use where a ET can walk through a solid concrete wall and appear in your bedroom, standing at your foot of your bed, that's what I could not find a definition in the dictionary, English dictionary. So I refer to it as cosmic magic. It's a multidimensional way of, it falls into quantum mechanics in physics and other related mathematical activities in high order science. So that falls into the same thing of the inner earth people. The inner earth people are also part of that group, not only the inner earth, but also of the star people, what the Indians call star people. So actually the American Indian population have always got connection to the star people and where they come from, including Bigfoot.
I was going to ask you about Bigfoot.
Yes. So that if you look at all the information, the real good information, not the stuff that these guys do, you know, those guys like what a Bigfoot hunters or whatever, you know, that's just to make money. And but the real thing is that I have had encounters with Bigfoot, but you can never tell where they're at, and you can't even track them sometimes because they'll disappear in front of you. You've seen that. I mean, there's volumes and volumes of information. So they go they'll go back in and out of it, but they're also keepers of the planet to keeping control. Wherever there's a UFO, ETs around, there's always Bigfoot. So they're all connected, even the little people. All Indian tribes have history of little people. You know, they're about 2 or 3 feet high, and Zuni, they call them if there is like an earthquake or something that happens with the earthquake, those are the first ones that will come out. And so but again, they're in a different dimension, which humans have no idea of what it really is. You know, you can only prove it probably or theorize it in a mathematical equation, but it's pretty tough.
Yeah, in order to actually comprehend it and wrap your head around it, I don't think we have that capability quite yet. I think we're on our way, and I think certain people, the veil is thinner for them, so they can see into these dimensions sometimes, and these are the people that have the experiences. And as far as walking through walls and stuff, I think that's so everything is vibrating at a specific frequency. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
when a being can match its vibration to what we would refer to as a solid, that's no longer a solid to them, and they can pass through it as if it's them. It's really, it's complex, but it makes sense when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, well, that's another thing too, that when we talk about multidimensional uh, stages, I think there's a lot of people that are on the wrong track by taking stuff like ayahuasca and all these different plant drugs. I mean, all you're doing is you're just confusing your mind. I think that because if you are part of that, you'll be shown. You don't need no drugs. You don't need no anything because it's already exists. It's just that we haven't. They have taken away those. They have taken away those keys, if you want to call them that, or information systems, and they're locked up in the Vatican. They're locked up in Smithsonian and even Area 51.
Yeah.
So so these are the reasons why they're holding in power, and that's what they're afraid of losing, is that you look what they did to Tesla with free energy. We don't have to. It's right here. So I think that's another reason. It's because it falls in the category of religion, which is man-made, and so it falls in that same category.
Yeah.
And so there's no punishment anywhere. It's you make your own destiny is what it amounts to, but they don't want to admit it. Well,
Yeah.
this is what the inner earth people are all about. They're with us. This is really, it kind of puzzles me, because when you're out here in the desert on any given night, you can walk out there, you can see UFOs. However close you want it, or however you want it. I guess maybe it's called manifestation, or some people just have it and others don't. They can't. I've taken people out there to the desert. I've said that, hey, here they come, and there'll be about 5 or 6 of them, and whoever the guy I'm with, or maybe 2 are out of 10 or 12 people, they cannot actually see it. I don't know why. I mean, this is another reason that maybe they don't have an open heart or open mind or whatever it is, but they're here. There's others that are on the other side that they can actually talk to ETs and Bigfoot and other different beings in front of you. I've seen it happen. And those are the ones that perform practices to cure a lot of human beings, because that is also their role.
I'm smiling. I'm smiling right now because this is resonating deeply with me. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know people that are in communication,
Mm-hmm.
and the information they come forward with, or that's channeled through them.
Yeah.
It just can't be taught in our education system.
No.
But what's interesting, it's when you hear that information, it's not like you're being taught it. It's like you're remembering it. You already knew it, and it's just kind of being activated within you. And then that's how you really discern what's true and what's not at that point.
Well, I talk a lot about reincarnation, and also about the human body is just like a uniform. The soul is the spirit is one that carries on. And a lot of times, I've had that experiences many times in many different situations where I would know exactly what was behind that mountain, and I've never been there. So I would say that, and then I'd explain to my friends, and they just laugh at me. But when we got there, I say, well, you were here before, that's why you know. I said, no, I've never been here before. And that type of thing. It's all humans have that. It's just that they were closed up even the day they were born.
Mm-hmm. Well, it starts with the vaccines. I mean, what they put in our bodies is not compatible with our bodies, and therefore, right off the bat, we're already fighting something that's not natural, and it just starts a cycle. It's a snowball effect.
Well, it's even introduced even at the time of conception. You remember several years back, maybe 20, 30 years ago, I think it was either Scientific American or one of those high scientific magazines I used to subscribe to. They talked about if you play Mozart when you're pregnant with your child, the baby when it's born will be more passive than if others that did not nurture their baby while they're in there. And I said that at that time, I threw that paper and I said, hey, the Indians have known that for thousands of years. What's the big deal? So it's all, and also the other thing too is that the vaccines and I'll give you a good example. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't claim to be anything, but when the first thing that I have seen, whether it's true or not, because I've never been in a room where a baby is born, but the first thing that they do, the doctors on delivery, they slap the kid to make it cry or to wake it up. No, I have never seen an Indian family do that. The reason also is that that baby is still connected with the umbilical cord and also the soft spot on your head when the baby is born. It's still being downloaded. And that's why when you're an Indian kid and you have a little brother or sister that's a baby, you're told not to touch the head of your little brother or your little sister. So the grandmothers I would ask, of course I was always curious, I said, why, how come I can't do that? He said, because he's still with the other world and he's being, what the term now is, downloaded.
That's amazing.
So these are basic things that a lot of people don't understand. And so these Western medicine practices are just way above something else. All they have to do is come back and listen to some of the practitioners of the natural birth. And also the other thing too that I explained about that, there's a juniper tree outside my house right here. The grandmothers taught me you take the juniper tree leaves and the berries and they make a pot when the baby is born. And they give the mother that warm tea made from that. So I asked my grandmothers, how come you give that to the mommy? They said, well, later on I found out that it cleans out your uterine tract, the afterbirth effects. And then the other thing too that I learned later on was that it also has a birth control element in there or compound in there. So all Indian kids were usually 2 or 3 years apart. In my generation, there was no back-to-back babies that were born. So there's a lot of truth to these old practices, which they dumped when Western medicine came about. Just like marijuana. Marijuana is a good medicine. Now we're going back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was, and from my understanding, cannabis was gifted to the planet from the Star People.
Yes, absolutely.
And other planets also have similar plants like this that to help assist with I guess humanity on their planet.
Well, the way the Pueblo people use that is to make the connection in a spiritual communication. Because it also when they ask for rain, it's a tobacco or a plant that they use to make direct connection. So we used to kid about it. They say, "Oh, what's that guy doing?" I said, "Oh, he's talking to the spirit people, but he's smoking on his marijuana cigarette, So anyway, there's a lot of things that are so basic. That's why I'm doing these things, because there's so many things that are so common, plants that you can go out there. My grandmothers, my grandfathers, and all my elders used to teach me. You have a stomachache, you go out there to the riverbed where it's out here in the desert. You just take a clay ball that was left over from a flood. You just put that and just swallow that. 5 minutes later, your stomach ache is gone. That type of remedies that are all over, but no, we're too dependent upon, like the pharmaceutical people, because all we're doing is poisoning our bodies with that.
I mean, it's a scam, in my opinion,
Yes.
the whole system. That's so fascinating. Honestly, this is one of the most fascinating interviews. I resonate so much with Native American culture and history. I don't know why, since I was a child, and I'm absolutely fascinated with it. So to have you on telling us about all this stuff is just amazing to me. So thanks again.
Sure.
And another,
Yes.
I wanted to ask you your opinion on giants, because from my understanding, there were giants roaming the earth back in history as well, and we have evidence, but that's also being suppressed as far as skeletons and stuff. Do you have any information on that?
Well, one of the things that I work with people like Brad Olson. We were and others. I can't remember Crane and some other guy that I helped them work with it, and of course the Ancient Alien bunch. But one of the things that we know is there's a record of giants in all petroglyphs. If you go to the petroglyphs anywhere on the planet, you will see giants. Now, giants are bigger, at least maybe anywhere from maybe 1 to 3 times bigger than Bigfoot. They'll have Bigfoot right next to or within that same petroglyph area where Bigfoot is there, but on the other side will be uh, the giants. And we have history of giants. One of the theories of the Chaco culture being or they just vacated. Nobody knows where they went. Is where the red-haired giants,
Yeah.
which are a lot of them are still buried in Nevada. And I know of a lot of people that have told me about. They won't lie to me because we're all professional people, and they have been doing that. I mean, they were born and raised there. They know where they were buried, but they just leave them alone. And yes, there were giants, and even in the Bible and other histories, they talk about them. But and even in the biblical Goliath talks about that. So yes, the American Indians have known about the giant people along with Bigfoot and other different types of, I guess, bigger people, or they were half human or whatever they were. And that's a good quick reference to this is the giants, and we have stories about it, legends, and including that's one of the things that they scare you with when you don't behave when you're a kid. They call them ogres. The ogre will get you, and there's a lot of history from other Indian tribes. It's kind of disappeared. That they talk about, capturing or cornering the giants in caves and smoking them out.
Are there any tales or stories that were told to you as a child uh, that have always stuck with you, that have always remained, that you would mind sharing with us, like an old story that would be told to you as a child that has just been passed down? Is there anything like that you still remember?
Well, one of the things that one story was about. Uh, let's see, what was his Zuni name was, but he was like a giant, but he lived outside the rest of the population. And this was probably way, maybe 300-400 years ago. That was the only one that's left, but he was huge, according to the stories. But that I don't remember anything that directly related to any of the giant type people. Maybe when I was a small guy, uh, I didn't know that there was such thing as giants. All they said was, well, he was a big person.
Yeah,
So it's pretty hard.
that's interesting. Have you heard of? Are you familiar with the Cahokia Mounds here in North America? Central, it's East St. Louis, essentially, if it's in Illinois.
Well, I used to go to Serpent Mound for a number of years,
Yeah, I know about
and,
it.
and yeah, and a lot of those, there's a lot of theories on that. But back in the old days, maybe thousands of years ago, they used to go back and forth. There was a huge population of American Indians. I'm talking about millions. So they had what I understand about you know, the, those type of mounds were that they were created also not by them. Maybe they helped whoever the people were, but I I don't really have any good information because that was not part of my studies, and the remaining ones are pretty well shot. Like Serpent Mound is still in good shape, and right close to that is the Woodhenge.
Yeah,
Remember
that
that?
Woodhenge is actually at Cahokia Mounds site.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was there.
Oh,
I
where are you?
was
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's about 25 minutes away from us
Yeah,
here.
I didn't have time. I didn't have time to read. See, this was in March. Yeah, it was in March. It was cold.
Hmm.
So I just only had so many days that I had to spend there. I was hoping that I would spend at least 3 or 4 days just going over there at that site and finding out more information. But the guys that I had were pretty well up to date. I mean, with their information. But I was out there at that site. I took pictures of that from the highway.
Nice. Yeah, it's right off the road.
Yeah, it's right off the road. Yeah. But there have been many, many places, especially out here in the Southwest, that were a lot of them were destroyed by early colonials, ranchers, and a lot of them were the happy hunting groups called the anthropologists and archaeologists. They wanted it for their front yard, so they used to destroy a lot of that stuff. And in my own tribe, and in my own lifetime, I have gone back to a lot of these ancient sites, which we left them alone as kids. They're totally gone, destroyed.
Mhm.
So when we had, there's one that I know of, which I've never gotten up there, is Stonehenge on top of a mountain, and the term for that is where they were on, where they were on the top of the mountain.
Hmm.
And that reference, I studied it back to where that's where the ETs came, and right before a ceremony, that's where they landed, and it's on top of a mountain. And the way that they explained to me is that it's like a mini Stonehenge.
Wow. Wow. So
Wow.
are you familiar with any like ancient stargates, I guess is what they refer to?
Yes, Los Alamos is the biggest one. Right here, right there in Arizona, is what they call the Kachina Stargate. But I have been criticized because they're all over the world. I mean, this is.
Yeah.
But I've never been to either of those places. But all I do is know about it just based upon the information that are uh, recited in chants, songs, rituals, and they know exactly, and it's all part of the star system. It's all reference to the star system. Basically, Orion, Pleiades, and others. They're all connected to the star systems, constellations.
Yeah. And it just fascinates me. It's just that everything was just common knowledge back then, and we're fighting so hard, getting in arguments with people about it existed or it didn't exist and everything. And like you said, it's always been here, and it's just amazing to hear somebody come forward like you and just like say it like it is, and just like eliminate any questions. It's like, no, this is what happened.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I haven't written any book. I've been asked to write books, but I don't have time. I'm retired and I'm lazy.
Oh, that's funny. I thought I thought it was funny when we were having technical difficulties and I asked you, didn't they teach you how to use the internet in the Hopi teachings? And you said, oh, I went fishing that day. It cracked me up.
That's amazing.
So I know that Native Americans had a connection with animals. And as far as eating meat and eating food, it was always a sacrifice and you would transition the soul. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, again, we're talking. Remember, I said that we have a lot of respect for raw people or raw things. Everything that is not human, whether it be an insect, an animal, or a ET or whatever, they are all referred to as raw people. The little red ant that walks around in your front yard, he's also a raw people. The big buck that you want to go over there and shoot with your 30-06 is also a raw people. Yes, we have rituals like they were provided by the Great Spirit. And if you want to be like an Indian, the Great Spirit provided us, you know. So we take everything as part of our survival, but they only take what is needed. And then after we kill that certain animal, we have to give blessings to it because they gave us their meat and their for the food for us to survive. So we bless them as if they were high order people also. You know, we treat them like we call them like in the priesthood or whatever. So we prepare them also to go to the afterlife because it's just a reincarnation, it's a regeneration, rejuvenation of the life forms to keep us in balance. But now we're not. So this is what all Indian tribes or all Aborigines have rituals for that, and it's to give us life.
Yeah, and from my understanding is, you know, we've lost sight of that whole practice in our modern times here. But I understand that the way I understand it is that these animals came here knowing that they were going to be they were going to be a sacrifice.
Yes.
They knew they were going to be food for you guys. So this was part of the deal essentially, and you guys honored it and they honored it.
Yes. Well, you know, this whole system was set up long time ago by whoever or whatever whoever put the system in there, because the humans were they were upgraded many times, and so this was one of the things that they had to be informed about, and that's where the protocols come in. How do you go about doing these things? What ritual do you go through to take this animal? You know, if you look at the stories of the buffalo, they used everything from that animal, the fur, the skins, the bones, everything. Just same way with what we used to do when we go out and kill a deer, and everything was used. It was not wasted. So we had a lot of respect for the animals that we got our food from.
Yes, I think that's something that we've lost sight of, and it's that information in particular needs to be shared, because a diet is a huge thing right now. We're, like you said, we're eating poison for the most part every day, and if people can go back to those practices, it can really benefit us. And they can, you know, there's a reason, you know, you can go outside and see a UFO and someone else can't.
Yeah.
Because you have that respect and you're existing in that oneness when everyone around you might be programmed otherwise, and it might not even be their fault. It's just something that we need to start being aware of.
Well, this is where the awakening comes in. I address a lot of groups of people, whether in a conference or whatever, and I ask the question and say, "What are you guys afraid of?" I mean, you know, they have been, like we were talking about, since the day you were born, you're pounded into things that are not true. and you're told you're actually a prisoner when you come to this planet. Whether it's either your parents' background, either the school system, the government, whatever. You're a prisoner. They don't have make kids have fun anymore. When they go out and they roll around in the dirt, they pick them up and they put them in a sterile situation. How can they resist other viruses when they're so where they're not treated like that? It's the same way with anything else. I mean, people are not taught to think for themselves. We have to force it into them, and this is one of the whole rebellion I took when I was a little kid. The government forced us to make us do things, and I told them not only no, but hell no. And so this is why I was called a radical when I was a little kid. I didn't believe in any of the stuff. They tried to make me a Catholic. They tried to make me a Mormon. They tried to make me a Protestant. And I absolutely refused. I told him, I said, we have our own God.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for standing up and having the insight to know better, because a lot of people don't question. We're taught not to question authority, so people just kind of go with the flow, I guess you could say, and what seems to be what they push as normal.
Well, why, why you're going to be like that? Why waste your time in going sitting in the classroom? Why waste your time in going to try to be something? You might as well just be like anybody else. And because once you go to first of all, they don't teach you anything nowadays. And if more people would stand up and say, this is not right, and stand up for what they believe, this will be a better planet. There'll be a better communication. And this is where a lot of people think that you're just not making any sense. I said, no, I mean, that's what education is all about. See, a lot of people in this nation or the planet for that matter, are not educated. The education comes from within you and from your heart. It doesn't come from sitting in a classroom or sitting in church or getting on the internet. Or we used to be National Enquirer, now it's the internet. So you don't learn anything. You got to go out there and learn how to survive out there. This is where a lot of us that have been through this journey are not afraid to sit back and be slapped around, because it's a better world out there being your own person.
Wow. Yeah. With that,
Yeah.
yes, that's
Amen to that.
Amen to that. Yeah. You are quite literally filled with wisdom.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. I know we had some difficulties getting together, and thank you for putting up with everything. I guess, is there anything that you want to tell us before we wrap up? Are you speaking on any conferences this year coming up? Do you have any plans for 2020?
Well, I've got one that is coming up in the first weekend in April. It's called the Human Origins Conference. It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I think it's a 4-day thing. And they have people like myself, Brett Olson, Travis Walton, and the people that talk to the aliens on Sandia Mountain, Sue Walker, and Tom, White Otter. And a lot of people, you start paying attention to a lot of the aliens that have been here forever, and that they call it the Ponti. They call themselves, I think there's 4 or 5 who send them. I told them like many years ago, I said, oh, there's aliens up on the mountain. The natives have known about it for thousands of years. Within about a year, they had contact with those. So that should be a good session.
Yeah, that's in April in Albuquerque. That's amazing.
Yes.
I love, and it doesn't sound like there's a huge ticket, like a lot of people, which I like. The smaller groups are more intimate, I think. So It definitely sounds exciting.
Well, you know, on these meetings, even though I go to a lot of them, even though I'm not invited as a speaker, but I go over there and I sit in the corner somewhere, and people come around because I'm a messenger.
That's beautiful. Yeah, man, I could listen to you talk all night.
And
I literally could. Aaron, you need to say something just because you've been quiet over there. And,
yeah, there was. I never felt like there was a good place to really butt in.
sure, but
You guys are both. I mean, Clifford mainly you're, you know, you had so much good information. No, I mean, just you know, the only thing I want to say is thank you so much, first of all, for coming on the show and sharing all this amazing information with us and sharing your wisdom. Because, you know, it's like the natives and these original people that you guys have been on the planet for a long time, you know, and you have your, you know, stories and your information passed down through generations to your own people that talk about the true history of the planet and the star people, like you say, like, which we call aliens. So it's like, to me, that's, if you want to talk about proof, you know, that's the proof right there that we're not alone in the universe. It's like, you know, you have all these cultures around the planet that have been around for a long, long time talking about beings coming here, you know, that like they're your ancestors and they came down, and that's where you guys came from, you know, and along with everything else, you have all the knowledge and wisdom to go along with it that has been preserved to a certain degree, you know, through the ages. And it hasn't been until really recently in relative terms that we have all this so-called, like, you know, we think we're like in the enlightened ones now, like with the modern mainstream information, and it's not at all. Like you said, it's like the real stuff has been around a long, long time. And so thank you so much for sharing this information and getting out there and helping wake people up to all this stuff, because it's very important. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
yeah, absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with that. It's a great point, Aaron, as far as, you know, there's your proof right there. You know, people argue what proof is and what is evidence, but it all comes from within, like you said. And if you're on the right path, you'll discover that on your own. No one needs to tell you anything because you'll just know. And yeah, so, and also we have t-shirts available now. We'll put the link below, teespring.com. We have 2 designs available that Aaron created. They're awesome. So if you feel compelled to buy a t-shirt, please do. The Omnia patch that you put on your phone to block the radiation, it works. It literally stopped my chronic headaches that I didn't know how to cure. I had headaches every day. It turned into migraines. I had to resort to Western medicine, as you would say, just to you know, help. And when I put this patch on all my devices, my headaches went away. So it really works, and I highly recommend. I highly recommend putting these on your devices, because we're being poisoned otherwise. Even if it's not food, it's from the radiation, and God knows what else. So I just wanted to put that in there, and make sure you consider subscribing if you enjoyed this or you enjoy what we're doing. If you want to show your support, we have posters on the way, and man, everything else. It's a big year. Thank you so much for coming on, Clifford. This has been absolutely incredible. I can't wait to get this out, and everybody needs to hear this. And everybody who hasn't heard of you, I'm excited for them to get a glimpse of what you're all about. So with that, I guess we'll end it. Good night, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.